I'm in the luteal phase, but I feel more energized. Why is that? Because normally by this point, when I'm a week out from my bleed phase, I would start to feel quite like low, and right now I just feel really energized. And it's because I need to take into account the fact that it's the waxing moon in the sky right now, and we're building up to that peak of the full moon. We're going to be talking all things moon and lunar cycle, lunar phases today. I've got with me a green matcha. I'm going to use this for my morning. We're going to be pepping up and tuning into, even though I'm in my luteal phase, and this is the thing when it comes to lunar phases versus menstrual phases, even though I'm in my luteal phase right now, I still feel quite energetic. And it's because we are in the waxing moon phase right now. While I'm recording this, it might not be by the time I release this, but we are in the waxing moon phase right now, which is kind of like the opposite energy to the luteal phase. The luteal phase is the waning moon. It's that coming back down from the peak. And so I could talk on and on about this. I've made a masterclass about this. It's in all of my philosophies inside Feminine Harmony and what I teach people in one-on-one sessions. And that's really what the Soma Cycle method is. And my Soma Cycle sacred text is hopefully going to be coming out by the end of this year that teaches you all of this. But in this Body and Brew episode today, I really just want to take a moment to look at how we can use one singular lunar cue to sync our energy, our body, with our week. And so when it comes to the lunar cycle, it's not always just literally what's happening in the sky. Yes, we do want to bring reverence to astrology, to the way the planets influence us, but also we have to check in with how our bodies are feeling internally and how that's also blending with the phase of the moon in the sky. And so one simple cue, if you can think about it, is like, for example, take mine. I'm in the luteal phase, but I feel more energized. Why is that? Because normally by this point, when I'm a week out from my bleed phase, I would start to feel quite like low, and right now I just feel really energized. And it's because I need to take into account the fact that it's the waxing moon in the sky right now, and we're building up to that peak of the full moon. And so I'll cover the basics before we get to that one cue a week. When we look at the four main phases of the moon, we have the new moon, otherwise known as the dark moon, which is that peak of the low point. So when the moon is dark before it becomes new, that tiny little slit you see in the sky. And this is where we have our moment to pause, our sacred rest, and real intention and really deep manifesting can come in. We have the root chakra coming in, the sacral chakra, and our earth star chakra. And so our energy is very deep, very intentional during that phase if we are on our bleed phase. So you could think of it as like, if I'm on my bleed, I'm going to be following the frequencies of the new moon, of the dark moon, even if it's not what's in the sky right now, because our bleed cycle will not always sync up to what's happening in the sky. Whereas if you don't have a bleed cycle and say you're pregnant or post-menopausal, or for whatever reasons you just have no bleed cycle right now, you can follow the moon cycle, and this is where this comes in handy. But I digress. We have the new moon, which is where we have that real deep intention and rest and pause. It's where we really do truly reflect and start to manifest and start to it's like the death and rebirth. Then from there we have the waxing moon, which is what's in the sky right now, the opposite of my luteal phase. And this is where we have our follicular phase, our reawakening, our rebirth. It's where we're beginning anew. Think of it as like innocence and expanding our perception. We feel more curious, more playful during this phase, whether it's the waxing moon in the sky or whether it's our follicular phase internally inside. And so you could think of your follicular phase as the waxing moon inside of you. Then we have the full moon, the peak of high energy. You can guess that's going to be ovulation, right? So you can think when you're ovulating, this is when we are the full moon inside, regardless of what's happening in the sky. But if you're following the full moon, you can also take into account that that's going to be affecting you as well. It's not necessarily high energy, the full moon, but it is full illumination, full expression, and it is a full feminine power. This is when the full feminine energy, in terms of the moon's energy, comes into power and expression, and we start to really, and this is why full moons can be really full on, we have that full clarity. It's like, and when we're in ovulation, based on our hormones, our brain chemistry changes and we actually have full clarity as well. It's where we feel more confident, more powerful to express when ovulation is optimized, that is. And so you can see how they correlate. When we have that ovulation going on inside, we do have that mental resilience, that strength, that power, and we can draw upon that of the full moon's energies and frequencies for us internally as well. Then we have the waning moon, and this is where we start to circle back to the bleed phase. This is our transit from one peak to another. We have that waning, that decay, that decline, that harvesting. We start to harvest information, connect to everything we've learned over the previous cycle, and start to reflect, start to slow down, start to integrate what we've learned over that previous 3 phases as we come back into that death and rebirth, into the bleed. And this is where, if we don't carve enough time out to regulate our nervous system, we do become irritated. Our hormones are dropping. And so when you think of the luteal phase, which is what this phase is, between ovulation and bleed, you can think of that as your waning moon, a time to start slowing down and resting. And I would say that this is the time to actually prioritize the rest, because when you have your bleed cycle, I feel like it's a little easier. You know when you need to rest, you listen to your body screams at you a little more. Whereas when you're in your luteal phase, you don't necessarily listen as much because you know your bleed hasn't arrived yet, like as a mental thing. And that's actually the point where you do want to be prioritizing slowing down, not necessarily having full rest, because that is, again, the bleed phase. That's the new moon. But it is the time where we should be prioritizing slowing down, nervous system regulation, and coming back to relaxation. This is also what's going to help us drop our levels of testosterone and estrogen and bring up those levels of progesterone. And so now that we've covered the basics on all that, the 4 phases of the moon, the 4 phases of the bleed cycle, one lunar cue that you can use to integrate at the start of your week is to start to drop into your body. Take a moment at the start of your week, whether it's Sunday or Monday, whatever the start of your week is for you. Or even if you're midweek and you want to do this check-in, you're welcome to, of course. It's like, feel into when you need it. You'll know intuitively. But just take this moment to drop into your body, feel your body. Notice, what phase does my body feel like today? Don't even think logistically where you're at in your cycle, in your bleed cycle, or logistically looking up at the moon in the sky. Just drop in and say, what does my body feel like today? And what phase does it relate to in terms of lunar phase the most? For me, if I drop in, it relates to that higher energy, kind of waxing, coming into the peak of full moon. And that was a check that I did before I even looked at what was in the sky, right? And so this is just, it helps us strengthen our connection to what's happening in the sky, to the lunar energy. As women, we are so connected to lunar energies. You know, it's like la luna and la sol, which is in Spanish, it's like the sun and the moon. And even that in itself speaks to the masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang. And when we look at the moon and her phases and how it correlates with our phases as women, we can also see that correlation of the moon being more feminine, the sun being more masculine. And so you drop into your body, you ask yourself, what phase do I feel like I'm at right now in my body? What do I feel like? And you could even go off energy levels, like what do my energy levels feel like right now, and how do I relate that to the 4 moon phases? Which one does it feel like it resonates with the most? Does it feel like new dark moon, which is intention and rest? Does it feel like waxing moon, which is where we expand and rebirth? Does it feel like the full moon, where we're at our peak power? Or does it feel like the waxing moon, where we're starting to slow down and integrate again? Could bring in some nervous system regulation and notice a little bit of mental irritability or short fused, you know? And so once you do that check, you can then define how you want your week to be. Think about what one action you could do daily for this week, or one intention, one way of being. And then you can even just write it on a post-it note next to your bedside, and that can be your intention for the week. Or you can go more witchy and like do a full blessing ritual for like even just 5 to 10 minutes and just set your intentions for the week. Do a visualization meditation for your week and instill that, and wake up every morning, just take 2 minutes to visualize that same thing over and over again, that same intention. Watch as it evolves over your week as well, because you will be evolving through that phase for the week. So that's what I would do. That's one simple lunar check-in, and also a little bit of a tutorial. Of course, I diverted and went straight into bleed cycles and lunar cycles and talked about yin and yang. I can't help but talk about this stuff because it's like, it's my jam. I love it. But yeah, that's everything I think I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this Body and Brew episode, and I'll see you next time.